The anime Attack on Titan ended a while ago, and fans all over the world were divided about how it ended. Some accepted it, while some said that Isayama ruined Eren. But we are not here to talk about whether Eren was ruined or not. We are here to talk about how the series parallels with the real world. Attack on Titan is one of those rare stories that blurs the line between hero and villain so effectively that it forces you to examine your own moral compass. What Hajime Isayama might be trying to tell us through Eren's tragic arc and the broader narrative can be interpreted in a few ways. The cycle of hatred and violence. One of the central themes of Attack on Titan is how hatred and trauma are inherited across generations. Marley hates Eldia for past atrocities, and Eldians are hated for being descendants of those who once oppressed the world. Eren, born into this, is placed in a no-win scenario. Do nothing and watch his people perish, or act and become the monster to save them. As in the lore of the story, the ancient Eldian Empire, led by those who wielded Titan powers, did commit atrocities including enslavement and subjugation of other nations, especially Marley, ethnic cleansing and war crimes, using Titans as weapons to conquer and dominate for nearly 2,000 years. So Marley's hatred of Eldians isn't entirely baseless. It's rooted in a very real and brutal history of oppression. The Eldian Empire once ruled most of the world by force, thanks to the power of the founding Titan and the other 9 Titans. So what's the message here? Well, cycles of violence are self-perpetuating. Without understanding and compassion, history repeats itself in blood. Then there's freedom and its cost. Eren constantly says he wants freedom, but the more he pursues it, the more trapped he becomes by fate, by expectations, by the future he sees, in the paths. His choices, while appearing free, are dictated by a complex web of inevitability. The message here is the pursuit of freedom without understanding what it truly means can become a prison. And sometimes freedom for one group comes at the cost of another's. There's another point of fate, determinism, and the illusion of choice. The time loop and paths introduced the idea that everything is predetermined. Eren saw the end from the start, and yet he still walked toward it. It calls into question whether we have true agency in our lives, or if we are simply fulfilling roles set for us by history, society, fate, or even our biology, that is, physical or inherited traits like gender, race, and even genetic heritage can shape, constrain, or predetermine aspects of our lives, whether we want them or not. So the message here is, Isayama may be inviting us to reflect on how much of our lives are genuinely our own choices, and how much are shaped by forces outside our control. Another point is that of the cost of war and dehumanization. Eren's descent into mass murder isn't glorified, it's terrifying. And yet we understand why he does it, which makes his actions even more tragic because they don't come from hatred, really, but from love, desperation, and inevitability. What makes it so powerful is that we understand him not as a villain, but as someone forced into a role no one should ever have to play. By showing us his perspective, Isayama challenges the black and white view of war. So the message here is, war may turn people into monsters, not because they want to be, but because they believe they have no other choice. And that belief is born from fear, pain, and a world that refuses to offer another path. Isayama once said in an interview that he didn't know how to end the story because he himself struggled with what was right. That moral ambiguity is the beating heart of Attack on Titan. It makes us confront uncomfortable truths about nationalism, freedom, revenge, and the limits of empathy. So does it draw parallels or similarity with our world? What can we as a society learn from Attack on Titan? To answer it, well, yes, Attack on Titan absolutely draws powerful parallels into our real world. In fact, much of its impact comes from how closely it mirrors real-world issues despite being set in a fantasy world of titans and walls. Here's what we as a society can learn from it. History is written in blood and often one-sided. In AOT, the Marleyan government distorts history to justify the oppression of Eldians. This mirrors how, in our world, history is often told by the victors and used to justify cycles of hate, colonization, and genocide. The lesson here is question dominant narratives, understand the full context of history, or rather try to do it, especially from the perspective of the oppressed. The next point is about the dangers of dehumanization. Marleyans dehumanize Eldians to control them. Eren, on the other hand, carries out the rumbling, not out of hate, really, but because he sees no other future where his people survive. That tragic inevitability pushes him into becoming the very monster the world feared, even though he despises it himself. The lesson we learn here is that dehumanizing others, whether through race, ethnicity, religion, or ideology, and even gender, makes atrocities possible. We must guard against it in our language and policies. The next point is about nationalism and the illusion of us versus them. In the real world, blind nationalism often fuels conflict by encouraging people to see other groups as enemies or threats without questioning those beliefs. This can lead to discrimination, hatred, and even war. Does this ring a bell? I hope so. Like Rainer and Annie, many people caught in such conflicts may feel torn between loyalty to their country and their own moral compass. And like Gabby, young people raised with unchallenged patriotism may grow up with deep biases and perpetuate cycles of violence. So the lesson here is to break these cycles, at least try it. Societies need to encourage empathy, critical thinking, and open dialogue, helping people understand the perspectives and humanity of those they've been taught to fear or hate. Only then can true peace and reconciliation be possible. Our next point focuses on the trauma of children in war. Gabby, Falco, Eren, Armin, Mikasa, all are children shaped by war. forced to make impossible choices and carry unbearable burdens. The show asks, what kind of world does this create? So the lesson here is, war affects the innocent most, especially children. A peaceful future depends on breaking the cycle before it shapes the next generation. The next point is the grayness of morality. No one in Attack on Titan is fully good or fully evil. Eren is both a victim and an oppressor. Reiner is both a soldier and a broken man. Even Armin, often seen as the voice of reason, is forced to make impossible choices, sacrificing his ideals to stop the rumbling. This challenges the idea of clear moral boundaries and asks us to consider how people act under extreme pressure when every option leads to suffering. So the lesson here is that in real world, moral choices are rarely black and white. We must learn to live with nuance, empathy, and the willingness to understand conflicting perspectives. Ultimately, Attack on Titan is a warning and a mirror. It tells us that without reflection, without empathy, and without breaking the cycles of hate, we may end up creating the world, the same world that Eren found himself trapped in. One where the only choices are monstrous. Isayama gives us a brutal, unflinching look at what humanity is capable of, but also leaves room for the hope that we can be better. I am sure from everything that I have discussed in this video essay rings a bell, sounds familiar, especially with what is going on around our real world right now. Do let me know in the comment section whether you agree or disagree with the points that I have put in this video, or if I have missed out something. Thank you for watching and listening to this video essay. I'll meet you in the next one. Bye for now.